Hello and welcome to A Long Time Ago. We are back with a second series of For the Love of Star Wars. If you've been with us before, you know the drill. If not, welcome. What we do is we grab a guest to come on and discuss a piece of Star Wars media, whether that be a TV show, animated episode, making of, documentary, game, anything like that. But it's got to be something that they absolutely love. So let's not waste any more time and bring in our guest for this episode. He is an all-round great guy, a toy collector, and a man whose passion for Star Wars runs deep. Please welcome Andy, aka Delvian Seek.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hey, Andy.
How are you?
I'm good.
Very
I'm
good.
good. Looking forward to talking about this particular episode.
Well, let's get on with it then. What Star Wars media are we diving into today?
We are going to be talking about the finale of Season 2 of The Mandalorian, The Rescue.
Excellent.
Brilliant.
That's right. Season 2's finale, yes. Chapter 16, they call it. The finale that was directed by Peyton Reed, who most of you will obviously know as the director of the Ant-Man films. And it was written by Jon Favreau. No need to say any more on him. We all know his history. This series, Martin, I'm going to be changing it up. There's no IMDb scores this time, so we're going with Rotten Tomatoes scores. This episode received a very, very fresh score of 94%. So,
Nice.
Yeah, stuck the landing.
Yep.
So, let's get into it then, Andy. What is it that you love about this finale?
For me, this is, for all the sort of like TV shows that Lucasfilm, Disney have done, this is probably the height or the peak of sort of like a Star Wars TV when this came out. I think it came out in around about, I think it was 2020. It's that long ago now. And it was around about Christmas as well, I think, sort of like when the finale sort of like came about. But it's well written, it's well crafted. There's space battles in there. There's a team of sort of like people going on a mission. There's a twist. There's Terminator robots, and I'm not even getting to the big thing at the end, which sort of like is the ultimate bit of fan service. But I don't care.
Yeah,
it was brilliant. So
absolutely. Well, let's start with the space battle then, because they kicked things off, didn't they, with the battle between Slave One and Imperial Shuttle, which scene filled with original trilogy nostalgia, really, isn't it? It's a great little scene. We love seeing Slave One. We love seeing the Imperial shuttles. So Boba Fett in action.
It's kind of the first time you see an Imperial shuttle sort of like in a fight like that as well, which I quite liked, and it's sort of dodging away. But actually, that particular scene, it's sort of like it's not just the space scene; it's the scene inside the cockpit, and it was to me, it was one of the strongest scenes with Cara Dune's character. And I mean, I didn't know about the whole tier of Alderaan sort of like tattoo and everything like that, and excellent scene with sort of like with that character that sort of just sets the whole episode off perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. Martin?
First of all, I just want to I totally agree with what Andy said initially, that in 13 years of Disney owning Star Wars, this is hands down the greatest thing they've ever done. And in many ways, in my eyes alone, I'm not going to speak for anyone else, but it rights some of the wrongs that I have felt that with things that came before. And yes, this is just absolutely filled with nostalgia. We're talking about the Imperial shuttle and Slave One. I mean, we kind of just saw the pilots in Return of the Jedi, and we saw those blue lights in the background, and that's pretty much all we saw of the cockpit of the Imperial shuttle. But in this, we get a full-on cockpit design view, if you like, and I mean, it doesn't disappoint at all. There's some great dialogue in there with the hardcore Imperial pilot, who still, drinks the Kool-Aid, if you like.
Stay back, dropper. Easy.
Drop your weapon.
You're gonna wish you never left Alderaan. I saw your planet destroyed. I was on the Death Star.
Which one?
You think you're funny? Do you know how many millions were killed on those bases?
Drop your blaster.
As the galaxy cheered,
Last chance.
destroying your planet was a small price to pay to rid the galaxy of terrorism.
It's a great initial scene. Is it Dr. Pershing? I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
They capture. You know, he's
Yep.
he's obviously been a bit part character up to this point, but you know, again, he will lead us on to further things down the line in the Mandalorian. But yeah, I mean, I'll keep talking, so you better ask the next question.
But well, before you do though, it's the scene where Cara Dune shoots the pilot. It gets she gets Dr. Pershing in the ear, and in the next scene that you see Dr. Pershing, he's literally got a singed ear and a hole in his ear. Blaster.
I never noticed that.
I love
No,
that
I was gonna
dedication to
say.
continuity.
Yeah, I missed that bit myself. Actually, I'll have to go back and check that bit. So then after that, they head down to meet up with Bo-Katan and enlist her help. Personally, I think this is one of the weakest scenes in the episode. There's a lot of odd dialogue, unnecessary dialogue, but it's all about getting that team together, isn't it? At this point,
it's just set up. It's I mean, some of the dialogue, you're right. I think some of Bo-Katan's sort of like dialogue is sort of like, it is exposition. It's setting things up really for the next series, which is fair enough. And you kind of need to understand sort of like the importance of the Darksaber if you're not sort of a hardcore Star Wars fan, which this scene kind of does. I quite like the way when they walk in, the bar's quite full of people, and then after a few seconds of talking, it pans around to the bar and everyone's gone. It's like they kind of know what's coming.
yeah,
Big fight.
yeah, Martin.
Yeah, no, I think I liked most about this scene was you see Slave One, Bo-Katan's Gauntlet ship, and an Imperial shuttle all parked next to each other, and wow, I mean, you've got the original trilogy, you've got prequel and original trilogy, and you've got the Clone Wars all sat there next to each other. Three pretty iconic ships, you know, if you're a hardcore Star Wars fan. And it was that little moment actually that I liked the most from that scene. I think the whole Boba Fett having a bit of a fight with Sasha Banks's character, I've forgotten her name. It was a bit too much, but I did think it was quite nice that they alluded to the fact that Boba Fett was you know, one like the clones, you know, again giving it that link back to the Clone Wars when we saw Bo-Katan originally in Star Wars canon, and how many times she would have fought the clones or seen the clones. So that was a nice bit of continuity. But yeah, I do agree. It was probably the weakest part of this episode, but you know,
But it didn't
still,
last long. It didn't last long, and it took us sort of, and as we said, it was set up for what was yet to come, which was an epic little space battle to take the Imperial cruiser. It was great seeing Slave One and the Imperial shuttle, you know, traveling through. Well, they were traveling through light speed, and they were, you know, having that conversation between them of how things were going to work as they went on in. And it was just really good when they came through it, and we get to see the TIE fighters come out and whatnot. So a great little scene once again, Andy, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's lovely sort of like to actually, I think this is probably for the Mandalorian. I mean, we've seen a few space battles, but not with that many TIE fighters. I think there's been a few scenes with TIE fighters in space, but it's a great little battle. You get to see the light cruiser. It's even the way that sort of that ship's full of so many hangars, and the way the TIE fighters sort of come out, sort of like at the front in the middle. It's sort of like it just works sort of like very well in terms of sort of like for the storyline, because they've got to get the shuttle in there, and it starts to build the tension of this episode. And that's one thing I just noted. The tension just builds and builds and builds all the way through this episode, and that kind of space battle when I'm sort of crashing into the hangar is the start of it.
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
I think the TIE fighters taking off from that landing bay, very Battlestar Galactica-esque, isn't it? Where they're sort of running down the launch tubes, if you like, from Battlestar Galactica. Yeah, and again, nice tie to the fact that Katie Sackhoff played Starbuck in the reimagined Battlestar Galactica. So yeah, I'm sure that wasn't on purpose, but a nice little callback there. But yeah, it's always nice to see TIE fighters, and I do like the fact that they're used quite sparingly in The Mandalorian. You're not seeing fleets and fleets of them. I'm sure we will do in future movies in that universe, but it's nice that they've kind of held back a little bit, and as Andy said, they've got their plan, and them crash landing on there, that's when things really start to pick up the pace. And I think we're only like 12-13 minutes into the episode. I don't think it's even a particularly long episode, is it? I think it's like 47 minutes or something. 42 minutes after credits, I don't know, but it just gets amazing from there.
That's what I mean, actually. The plotting and the pacing of this episode is excellent. It's sort of like just builds up and it gets faster and faster as it goes through.
Yeah, so obviously from that point, things are just getting more and more tense, and we see them making their way actually onto the cruiser, and you see the team that they've assembled. They all come out and they work quite well together, don't they?
They work brilliantly together.
They've got their plan. Yeah, it's really good.
But they've all got their strengths as well. So like Cara Dune's sort of like, she's a drop trooper. She's got like the big heavy weight. It reminded me of that sort of online games they used to play where you're going in doing dungeons and you have to form a team and you've got people with specialities. And Cara Dune is the tank. And there was, but it was the two Mandalorians, Bo-Katan and sort of the other one whose name escapes me at the moment. It's the way when they're crossing the bridge and sort of like they knew it was going to be a trap and they sort of fly off ready to ambush them, sort of like on the outside. They worked extremely well together. Yeah. I love the bit where Fennec Shand, they're going through that sort of cargo bay and she just spots the stormtrooper through the hole and she just like headshots him without in a fraction of a second. It's just
brilliant.
Yeah. Well, we found out in an earlier episode, that she was a very, very talented bounty hunter, wasn't she? So that it all makes sense. It all flows quite well, doesn't it? I just want to say Cosca Reeves is the name we were all looking for.
Well done.
Because I couldn't remember it either.
Thanks, Adam. I'll forget that again in about 5 minutes.
We'll edit that bit out, don't worry.
Yeah. So yes, and then we do see the cell that Grogu's being held in by Moff Gideon, and Moff Gideon's got that dark saber out.
We do, but and then before that, we've got the Dark Troopers, though.
Oh yes, of course.
Well, they're firing up, aren't they?
Yeah, they're sort of like they're firing up. So he has to shut down the Dark Troopers before he gets to the cell. So
that's right.
He barely manages to fight one of them off, and it's just touch and go. And that's a great way of them portraying the fact that he's going to struggle with just one of them, and there's about another 30 of them left behind that door. So it's clever bit of storytelling, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and he uses up all these big weapons, his whistling birds, his sort of flood and he struggles to take it down. I love the scene where the droid's punching him in the face, sort of like, and the Beskar is just literally holding firm, and it's just, you kind of think, actually, that is like pretty strong stuff.
It's a great scene.
We really do get to see what sort of a threat the Dark Troopers are, don't we? Through this scene,
they are like sort of like Terminator, sort of like style droids. They're genuinely quite a threat in this.
Yeah. And then we'll move on to the Moff Gideon scene from there, and we see him there with the Darksaber. What were your thoughts on his performance? Because Giancarlo Esposito is amazing in just about everything he does, isn't he?
He is actually, and I'm glad you pronounced his name so I don't have to, because I would have butchered that. But actually, Star Wars sometimes struggles to sort of like come up with sort of strong, convincing villains, and actually Moff Gideon has been, for the first two series, sort of like at least, a really strong, threatening, menacing villain, Star Wars villain. He's got some good dialogue. He's sort of like he's going towards a plan. He's almost Thrawn-like in some ways, which I quite like. I like my Star Wars villains to not be sort of like senseless, mindless lackeys who don't really know what they're doing, but they've actually got a little bit of sense about them.
Yeah, I mean, that scene's fantastic. The way he opens the door and Gideon's just stood there holding the Darksaber in front of Baby Yoda. And at this point in fandom, we haven't seen season 3 yet, and we don't know Grogu comes back eventually. So we're thinking, this could be curtains for Grogu, maybe. And we kind of see how evil he is. And then he makes that bargain with Mando and says, well, if you just take the child and go, that's fine. And obviously he double crosses him pretty much immediately. And then that leads to that pretty awesome fight in the corridor between the two of them. And he uses that Beskar spear. Brilliant. I love that Beskar spear so much. It's such a great fighting implement against the Darksaber. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed that scene. Again, brilliant choreography fights in this. I think whoever they've got doing the fight choreography in The Mandalorian in general is absolutely fantastic.
I loved the bit when the Darksaber was up against the Beskar spear, and you could see the spear just starting to go red as it was starting to heat up, and everything. It's it's a great scene.
Yeah.
But obviously, eventually, Mando manages to sort Moff Gideon out and takes him up to the bridge, and then we sort of hear a bit more on the lore of the Darksaber. Was that sort of, I mean, obviously you're somebody with a very good knowledge of Star Wars, but for the casual viewer, do you think it was explained well?
Yes, and I think that's probably where the scene in the bar earlier becomes necessary for the casual viewer, setting that up. And yes, but being someone who's read some of the lore and knows some of the lore and everything, I kind of knew they were setting that up, because in a lot of ways this could have just been the end of the episode, but it's not, because actually it's that twist. It's now got Ashley as Bo-Katan going to attack Mando for the Darksaber. And linking back into the episode there's an episode of Rebels, won't go into Rebels too much, but Sabine Wren gives the Darksaber to Bo-Katan before, and then she leads people with the Darksaber, but it fails. So, and I think that's why she's not prepared to take it again, sort of like as a gift. She feels as though she has to win it in a fight. So it creates a new level of tension, and it's another way where Moff Gideon is a good villain, because he's kind of set that up. He kind of knew something was going down. That's why he went to the cell. He knew he'd probably get sort of like defeated, and he was trying to cause sort of like tension between the two of them.
Yeah. Yeah, he's stirring a lot on that bridge, isn't he? He's trying to cause divisions between them all, and then all of a sudden the dark troopers who have been sucked out of the bay have all started to come back onto the ship. I mean, then this is where it really ramps up to a new level. It's just amazing.
Yeah, well, let's move into that then. Do you remember your first reaction, Andy, when you first saw that X-wing show up? What were you thinking the first time? I mean, try and think back to the first time you ever watched it.
I can remember. Yeah. Right? So I was thinking, it's an X-wing, and then I remember sort of like, look, I was trying to catch how many of the lines were on the wing. Sort of like, is that Red 5? But I couldn't catch it in time, and I was sort of like, in the back of my mind, I said, no, they're not going to do this. They're not going to do this. And then it's one of those things where you kind of think, they're totally doing this, but I haven't quite got enough to be completely convinced about it yet, until a little bit. And they kind of do little bit by little bit as you go on. And I mean, I don't want to go too far ahead, but it's that you can see someone walking in a cloak and you think, oh, okay, cloak, hooded cloak person walking through. Then you see someone with a lightsaber. All right, okay. And then you see someone with a glove, with a green lightsaber. You think, oh my God, they're doing this. They're doing this.
Yeah.
It was
absolutely
It was just brilliant, and I know for some people it's fan service, but I don't care. It's like I waited nearly 40 years, sort of like for this moment. As a child watching Return of the Jedi end, it's sort of like you kind of think, well, what happened next? And you never really got to see it, apart from the sequel trilogy, which we won't talk about because it just. And it's seeing Luke in his prime. It's sort of like that's all I wanted. That's all, and it delivered on every single level. It was brilliant.
Yeah,
As you can tell,
I mean,
liked it.
I'm gonna ask Martin in a second, but my first reaction onto that scene, I still wasn't sure. You know, I was. It took a long time for me to be convinced it was him. I was like, is it all the way through? I could not. You know, I didn't think that they would, but yeah, Martin, give us your reaction.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all knew there was something going to happen, and for weeks before, because he took Grogu to that mountaintop where he sent out the beam of light to the galaxy to tell him that there was a Jedi or a Force sensitive there. So we all knew someone was going to turn up. And there was lots of rumor about it being Luke, but nobody that I knew was like, "Oh, it's going to be Luke." Everyone was like, "Well, they're pushing it to be Luke, but it's not going to be Luke. I mean, there's just no way it can be Luke." And the way they structured that whole scene was just brilliant because it was done in levels, just like Andy said. So your first level, the X-wing flies in.
X-wing.
One X-wing? Great. We're saved.
Incoming craft, identify yourself.
The second level, you see a guy in a cloak on a grainy video camera walking through the corridors. Then you see the grainy character of deflecting laser bolts and destroying the droids. Then you have this sort of side shot of the hand holding the lightsaber with that lightsaber hilt, and if you know Star Wars, then you know that's Luke's lightsaber hilt. And that was the moment I knew it was Luke. And then you just see him just absolutely annihilating these droids. I was like absolutely jumping around the room. I was stood in the air in front of the TV doing this, like, oh my god, this is amazing. And then he finally takes the droids out and he opens that door. They open the door and he walks in with the cloak. He ignites the lightsaber. It's all done so slowly as well, and he just hooks it to his belt, and then he just like that. And I have a bit of a reputation for being a bit of a crybaby. I cried and cried and cried. I had tears streaming down my eyes because this was the moment as a 40-plus-year-old Star Wars fan had been waiting for since 1983, and it couldn't have been done any better in my eyes. It was the greatest moment in Star Wars post Revenge of the Sith for me, and I was absolutely crying, and this, it's the scene where he asked him to take the helmet off, beautiful, saying goodbye to Mando, and just as I was starting to compose myself and get back to being like a grown man, R2 wheels out next to him. And I'm back again. I'm crying my eyes out. I'm just like, oh my god, this is brilliant. And I every time I watch that, now I watched this obviously before we did this a couple of times, and when it gets to that scene, I've seen it dozens of times now, and every time I get that scene, I still get that
goosebumps. And
we'll call it goosebumps.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, I'm taking it away from Andy. This is
No,
his episode. Sorry,
you
Andy.
go for it. I'm
this,
exactly the
this
same.
is my favourite episode.
Because actually, you're not alone. I mean, sort of like, actually, I cried at this one, and I don't cry. I haven't cried since the last millennium. It was just sort of like, but I did at this one, and I watched it again this afternoon, and actually, I could feel myself welling up. And there was a little bit of controversy at the time, sort of the people sort of like taking the mickey out, and stuff like, I don't care. It's like, actually, you produced and made something that sort of like had a really, really strong emotional reaction in people watching it, and that's what you kind of want to do. It's sort of it was just superb, and I'm saying when R2 sort of came out, I was just like, oh come on, give me a break. It's just like
I do remember seeing a story behind the scenes where Jon Favreau was talking when he was writing the script, and he was talking to somebody, and Dave Filoni was overhearing what he was saying. He said, "Yeah, so we'll have Luke come in," and Dave tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Well, you do realise if Luke's there, it means R2 is going to be there as well." And it was just like a revelation moment to Jon Favreau, because he just never put two and two together that of course R2 would be there, and he just added so many more layers to the scene. But yeah, what an incredible scene.
Apparently they told all the cast building up to that it was going to be Plo Koon who was going to be the Jedi who turned up. It was only at the last minute. What do we think of the CGI?
It's not perfect, but it doesn't matter because the emotion of the scene was still there for me, and it's one of those things where the quality of the special effects didn't matter. Really didn't care. It was the whole,
to be honest,
emotion.
I quite like CGI of sort of like of actors to be a little bit imperfect, so you can kind of tell it is a little bit CGI. I know it sounds a bit weird, but it didn't take me out of the moment at all. So
yeah. I thought the end of this being the end of season 2, there could have been an argument made that this was the final episode, and they didn't make any more after this, because it was kind of told the story of him finding Grogu and returning him to where he needed to be, back with the Jedi. So what were your feelings, Andy, on whether this should have been the end? If it wasn't going to be the end, which we know it wasn't, should Grogu have come back so quickly? What were your feelings on that?
No, see, when I first watched this, I did actually kind of think that was it. That was going to be the end of The Mandalorian. And then, of course, you're probably going to say about the post-credit scene as well. I mean, because while I was sort of there, sort of wiping my eyes, sort of like after watching the end of this episode, it's sort of the post-credits scene came up, and it's sort of like, oh, the Book of Boba Fett. All right, that's the next thing. It's moving on to sort of like another Mandalorian character. It's not just going to focus on that. But I'll be on the cynical side of me. Just sort of says Disney just saw, wow, everyone loves Baby Yoda. Let's keep going with it.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
but what about you, Adam?
Exactly the same. I think it probably should have been ended there. It should have stopped. I don't feel like, I mean, without getting too much into Series 3, I don't feel like there was much in Series 3 worth watching in that sort of sense, because they told the story. But I'm not going to lie, I'm going to be interested to watch Mandalorian and Grogu film. So
yeah,
we'll see where their story goes from there. And I don't know, is there a Series 4 fourth
No, I
season?
don't think they're going to do a series
Or
for.
is it just the film and that's that then?
Well, I think there's the film, and then there's the other Dave Filoni film, which is supposed to be like the big, almost like it brings all the different story
Avengers.
threads. Yeah,
Yeah.
Well,
Star
if
Wars
I-
Unite.
Okay, well, there were a couple of other little bits, but let's face it, the pièce de resistance is there. We've spoken about
Yeah.
it. So I'll finish things up here with our final question. As always, what makes this feel like Star Wars to you, Andy?
It's got all the elements of sort of like a good Star Wars story. It's got a space battle. It's got a corridor fight. It's got two kind of lightsaber fights, if you count the dark saber's kind of a lightsaber as well. There's that family is quite an essential thing, sort of like in Star Wars, and actually the bond between sort of Mandalorian and Grogu. There's that family sort of like bond there, and it sort of does pull on the emotional sort of heartstrings, and it's a good ensemble piece as well. And Star Wars, even though that has sort of lead characters and everything, at the end of it, it's an ensemble piece, and there was good music in this one as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Andy, thank you for joining us on that. It's been absolutely awesome having you here to kick off
Thanks for
series
having me.
2. To everyone watching, thanks for sticking with us. Let us know your thoughts on the finale in the comments. Was Luke's appearance as emotional for you as it was for Martin and Andy? Go over and subscribe to Andy's channel. We'll put the link in the description. Subscribe to us if you aren't already, and hit that bell so you don't miss the next episode in the series. I'm off to polish my Beskar. We'll catch you next time. See you later.
Later.